Welcome, welcome. Happy Tuesday. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Target, day 6. You know we got to stay with the drip. How's it going? Debtopia says she's first. Chris Rodriguez says I was first. The first comment I see is from Debtopia, so I'm going to give her the dub on this one. But yeah, hey, regardless, you're all here. Welcome. We'll call it a tie. Yeah, I'll call it a tie. How's it going? Tuesday, the 23rd of August, 2022. Another, I wouldn't say busy, but an eventful day. There was some news we got to talk about. And, we're going to break it down. We'll talk about the roster cuts and a few other things. There were some nice things to talk about during the press conferences. So it was kind of cool to recap those types of things and hear what the players are saying. So, Chris, take it easy, my man. Take it easy. Oh, we're tied. How's it going, everybody? So, yeah, let's get into the news, shall we? Let me pull up everything out, and we'll get right to it. And we'll you know what? Before we get started, how's everybody's day doing? How's everybody's day doing? It's Tuesday, middle of the afternoon, and we got some news breaking this morning with the injuries and the PUP list and the roster cuts. Again, nothing surprising for me today in terms of roster cuts, but we got to talk about them. I think the biggest one, I guess, was Tanner Hudson, but it wasn't really a surprise. So we'll get right into it. So today, the rosters were trimmed to 80. The 49ers basically had to put 2 people on an injury, list, and then they had 3 players that they pretty much got rid of. And those 3 players are linebacker Jeremiah Gemmel. They waived them. Tight end Tanner Hudson. They released them. And then Sam Schluter, rookie, they waived, injured him. So let's talk about these guys one by one. Jeremiah Gemmel. Didn't really stand out much. Didn't do a lot this offseason. He had a nice little pass breakup against the Vikings, right? So that was nice. But you got to realize there's a lot of linebackers on this team. This team is chock full of great linebackers. And in order to make this team, you got to be pretty elite. You got Fred Warner, Azeez Al-Shahir, Dre Greenlaw. Now, the other thing is you actually have some really good undrafted linebackers. Marcelino McCrary-Ball, Saluno Agule. These guys are nice, So Gemmel, he was definitely not going to make this roster, and it was an easy cut for them. Maybe he makes it back to the practice squad. So, again, not a big loss. This is a guy they can probably keep and develop and stash. And you also have to realize they have to be very smart with the way they make their cuts, right? If they cut a guy that's pretty talented and somebody else might snag him up, they're not going to be able to put him on the practice squad. So, Jeremiah Gemmel, I don't think people are going to be knocking at the door to get him. So this is a guy they can stash in the practice squad in a couple of weeks. So Tanner Hudson, they released him. Yeah, he's had an up and down camp. There's been some moments with him. He got the game-winning touchdown against the Packers. But that drop he had against the Vikings was bone-crushing. And when we talked about it this week, and I said, I don't think Tanner Hudson survives much longer. The drop was the demise of him. And now that leaves them with a tight end battle. You got Ross Dwelley, Charlie Warner, Tyler Kroft, among the guys that are battling for that final tight end spot. So they have 5 guys battling for that tight end spot. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting battle this week. I still think it's going to be Dwelley, Charlie Warner, and Kittle that make your tight end spot. But, you never know. Tyler Kroft seems to be impressing the coaches if he's staying on the roster, right? So I think Tyler Kroft kind of – and then there's that Fumagalli. They have him on the roster too. So they still have some guys that are jockeying for position. Nobody's really separated themselves. So it's going to be a little bit of a battle on Thursday night. So I think Kroft might steal his way onto the roster depending the way it's kind of rolling. He might sneak onto the roster. But, again, I've been predicting the same 3 guys, Kittle, Warner, and Dwelley, and I don't think it's going to change because I don't know if Kroft has done enough to crack the 53-man roster. It's not like he's like, oh, man, he's really standing out. He's had a decent camp, so he might do enough on Thursday if he can come in and have a solid game. He might steal that final spot. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. So Sam Schluter, this is another guy, offensive lineman. they cut him and waived him. Well, they waived him, and then he went to the injured. They waived injury designation. So he's an undrafted tackle. He played on the team, nothing impressive. This is another guy they can cut and probably bring back for the practice squad. O-line, right? They've been having some ups and downs with guys. I was surprised Justin Skule lives to see another day. Definitely got to see another day. What's up, Joshua? We've been talking about it. So Sam Schluter, in case you missed it, Tanner Hudson. Those are the guys we mentioned so far that got cut. And who else did we mention anybody else? Sam Schluter. Oh, and Jeremiah Gemmel, the linebacker, Jeremiah Gemmel. So let's get back to Sam Schluter, though. Sam Schluter, again, tackle. It's not like he popped off the tape or did anything special. This is a guy that can go into the practice squad, right? And maybe be developed down the line. But they definitely need to make sure that they pick the right O-lineman. It's pretty much coming into shape. Justin Skule, again, gets one more chance. Jordan Mills gets one more chance to prove that they can make this 53-man roster. And again, you have a big game on Thursday, and the first string is going to play for at least a half. So I think that what happens is you got to make sure that they have depth players that can step in and finish the game for them and not get any serious injuries. So Colton McKivitz is going to start. Mike McGlinchey's dealing with some injury we'll discuss. So you're going to have Justin Skule and Jordan Mills out there to kind of be bodies on Thursday against Texans. You need bodies out there. So Justin Skule lives to see another. Let me call it. Yo, Justin, man. Did you have your bags packed today? Well, guess what? You can unpack them for another few. Actually keep them packed just in case, as there's roster cuts next week. But yo, Justin Skule, shout out, man. Big deal. Staying on the roster. Ball out Thursday. You might actually make the 53-man roster. But yeah, have a great one. Justin Skule lives to see another day. Unbelievable. And, another guy that stays on the roster is Keithan Sutherland, the backup center. Oh, he was awful. But you got to realize they're playing their reserves. They're not starting anybody, so they need bodies in the preseason. It's camp bodies. It's depth. They got to get through these final games. They have one more game on Thursday before it gets real. So this guy, Keithan Sutherland, is going to stick around. He'll be the depth piece. They're going to start Jake Brendel for the first half, and then after that, Sutherland comes in and finishes the job, and that'll be the end of the line for him. Next week he'll be cut. So those are the guys that got cut. And then what they did was they put Jason Verrett on the PUP list to start the season. No surprise there. The physically unable to perform list. Really no surprise. We all expected that. They've been kind of hinting towards it. The good news is Shanahan and Lynch over the last couple of weeks have both been saying he looks good. He's looking healthy. And Lynch today on KMBR, he basically said the same thing. He goes, there's no setback. He looks good. He's rehabbing very well. He's progressing just where he needs to be. They just don't want to rush him because they have a good amount of cornerbacks, right? A really solid amount of cornerbacks. The depth is so much better this year. You have guys like Diamador Lenore and, Sam Womack stepping up. You have Charvarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley. So it's not like they need Jason Verrett right now. And these are guys that are going to come in and help out the depth. And again, Jason Verrett, like I said earlier, it's icing on the cake if he's able to come in and play. So very nice that we have this luxury of not having to worry if Jason Verrett's coming back the first week. So he's going to miss at least the first 4 weeks. Those are the rules of the PUP list, that you have to, be ineligible for the first 4 weeks of the NFL season. So after that, they did put another guy on an injured list, basically. So rookie 6th-round pick, Khalia Davis. He's also coming off a torn ACL. He tore it in October of last year. He's from UCF, big D lineman, and they put him on the NFI list. That's the non-football injury list. So because it didn't happen in the NFL, you get placed on the NFI list, non-football injury, non-football related. So the injury was not related to being in the NFL or happening in the NFL. So it was something else. And, he had this injury in college, so he gets placed on this list. But it's basically the same as the PUP, the list, the rules. He's going to miss at least the first 4 weeks. But he did start his, he tore his ACL in October. So is a little bit after Jason Verrett. I don't think that he'll be ready within those first 4 weeks. And again, we may not need him, but he's a depth piece, and this is a guy that's going to develop and be a red shirt. They drafted this guy for the future, kind of like Kentavious Street when he came on this team. He missed his rookie season. He was dealing with the ACL, and he developed, and he finally got to play after a while, after rehabbing that knee. So I think that's what's going to happen with Khalia Davis. Probably not going to see much of him this year, if any, out of him. But if he rehabs well and they need some depth, maybe they'll bring him in. So those were your moves today. Again, nothing too surprising, nothing too crazy. Just to recap, if you missed it, they released Jeremiah Gemmel, the linebacker, Sam Schluter, the offensive lineman, Tanner Hudson, the tight end. They put Khalia Davis on the NFI list, and they put Jason Verrett on the PUP list. They're both expected. Those two guys, Jason Verrett and Khalia Davis, are expected to miss at least the first 4 weeks, depending on how healthy they are. But again, Khalia, I don't expect him to play. We're pretty deep at D-line. And Jason Verrett, again, they don't want to rush him. There's no need to rush him. And I like that. I like the fact that they don't want to rush Jason Verrett. There's really no need to rush a guy like Jason Verrett. So very good news to hear. And, hopefully he's healthy. Hopefully he comes back. If we get Jason Verrett back on this team, I mean, come on. It's going to be scary hours, very scary hours. And it's going to be nice to see. So a couple notes, though, from today is yesterday, Emmanuel Mosley came back to practice, and according to the reports from yesterday, he was just on fire. He was killing everybody. He was back in action, and he looked impressive. And that's what we need to hear, because a healthy Emmanuel Mosley is going to make this secondary just, scary. It's going to be lockdown. With this front line, with this D-line, and this front seven with the linebackers, I mean, man, all that pressure up front on a quarterback, plus that secondary, it's going to be hard on defense, on offenses. This might be the best defense in the NFL. We talked about it yesterday. They're getting a lot of praise. People are starting to realize that the Niners defense is very, very scary, and it's going to be nasty. It's going to be nasty. So let's get to some questions if you have any. We'll take a little detour here, get to some of your questions. How's everybody doing today? My man Joshua, what's good? What's up, Tehran? How's everybody doing today? Hit that like button if you're in. Get that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. If you are, appreciate you. If you're not, go tell people to come and subscribe. So a couple of other notes today. So Kyle Shanahan, he had a few things to say today on injuries and everything. So he did mention that the 49ers starters, Trey Lance, and the starters will probably play a first half, no more than the first half. So you get to see them for 2 quarters, and then after that, the backups come in and do their thing. So that's going to be nice, actually. I'm excited to see a whole half of Trey Lance. Oh, man, that's going to be fun. Trey Lance, a whole first half. Let's get it, baby. A whole first half of Trey Lance. That's what I can't wait for. Jesus. Man. Appreciate you, Joshua. I appreciate you. Thanks for hitting the like button. Trey Lance in the first half against Houston. Remember what he did last year against Houston in that second half? Deep ball. I want to see Trey Lance unleashed, uncork it. Debo and Ayuk and everybody. That first Kittle. Can't wait. I'm so excited. Kid in a candy store vibes right now. I'm so hyped up. So hyped up. Nicholas says, just got on my lunch now. Some Niner news with Raj. Okay, let's go. Hell yeah, man. My man Alex says, Kyle should let Trey sling that shit. Hell yeah, he should let him sling that pill. I want to see him just go crazy on Thursday. But it is a preseason game. Kyle's not going to show everything. He wants to keep tucked in hand. He doesn't want to give anything away. So we're probably going to see like a modest, a very reserved Kyle and offense. And Kyle, they script their first 20 plays, 25 plays. So the first plays that they do is not going to be special. It's a script. We'll see how Kyle and Trey run with the script. And that's the tough thing, because Trey knows these first 25 plays have to be acted a certain way or played a certain way. So sometimes it doesn't give the quarterback much freedom and flexibility. They have to stick to the script. And I don't know. We'll see how Trey does with the script, because apparently, from the reports and stuff through the, offseason and training camp, and, even when I was there, you could tell when the scripted plays were there, it didn't work as much. When Trey was given that opportunity to just let it rip and do his own thing, he played better, because he's at control. Otherwise Kyle's the puppet master and he's, making him play like fucking Pinocchio. And if you're scripted, the defense knows the plays because we're playing against the Niners defense. And Trent Williams was talking about today. Trent Williams talked about how this defense is basically they know the script in training camp, right? They know the script in training camp, so it's not like you're playing against a team that you're game planning for because they don't game plan against the 49ers defense. They know the plays. They know the playbook. When we're playing against another team, you game plan. You look at film. You do all these things to prepare for them. So it's a whole different situation. So a couple other things. So Kyle Shanahan did talk about certain players. He talked about Elijah Mitchell. He says Elijah Mitchell should be healthy and ready for week 1 against the Bears. That's big news. It's big news. We need that. We need that. Deb Topia says, Trey area. Eric, oh, what's good? He says, what happens to Trey Sermon if he doesn't look good at all again? It's a big question. If he looks like gutter trash this week, Niners Twitter is going to blow up and say, trade him. Get him rid of here. Cut him. But I don't think they do. I think they have invested enough to keep him on the roster and give him the benefit of the doubt. Might be a guy that they consider trading down the line. But I think even if he has a bad game this week, he doesn't lose his spot on the roster. It's going to be a controversial pick. That running back position is going to be a very controversial pick. At the end of the day, it's not going to be a popular pick of what happens. We're going to lose somebody we don't want. That's what happens every offseason, every, training camp through preseason. You fall in love with these guys and you're like, this is my guy. This is my dog. And they release him and you're like, fucking John Lynch, fucking Kyle. And you get mad. You get absolutely upset. But I don't think they're going to lose Trey Sermon. I just hope they don't lose a guy like Jordan Mason, who's been dominating, and a guy like, TDP's not at risk to lose his spot. I don't think. He's a rookie who's playing very well. But Jordan Mason, man, undrafted kid, came out of nowhere. I don't want to lose this guy. Nicholas says, I'm going to let y'all know right now, Sermon is going to get cut. I just don't think he will. Again, it wouldn't be like the biggest shock in the world because he's played so bad in the preseason. But again, it is preseason. Those first 2 games, he wasn't running behind the starters, so they might give him the benefit of the doubt. He's got a long leash because he is a 3rd-round pick. But again, at the flip side, because he's a 3rd-round pick, you expect a little bit more out of him. So it is a dicey situation, but we'll see. But the good news is Elijah Mitchell should be back week 1. We need Elijah. He set the rookie record for the 49ers rushing yards last year. Injuries have been an issue with Elijah, and I hope Elijah Mitchell can bounce back and be ready this season and be healthy. We need Elijah Mitchell to be healthy. This is why we have so many damn running backs, because everybody gets hurt because it's such a physical offensive run style that they do, So we'll see, though. This is another tidbit that Kyle said. He's optimistic about Mike McGlinchey, but he's not sure. They want to try to ramp him up next week. They're going to give him a go next week. He's not playing this week, so they're going to give him another week to rest. They're going to give him a go, and we'll see how his pain is next week. It doesn't sound good to me. Ray Hawthorne, they had a couple cuts today. There's another set of cuts next Tuesday, the 30th. That's the last. We got a week left till final cuts. Callie says, what's up, Raj? Niner from Chicago. What's good, Chicago faithful? Niners are coming to invade that place. I hope you're going to that game if you're in Chicago. It's going to be fun. But, yeah, I'm just going back to Mike McGlinchey. I'm not too – I don't know, just injury, just not sitting well with me. They got Colton McKivitz, who's going to presumably start if Mike McGlinchey's not ready to roll. They're hopeful, but they're not sure. This is what Kyle Shanahan says. They're hopeful, but they're not sure. It doesn't sound good to me. Knee injury, it's an irritation of the knee. He's already coming into the season with a torn quad. It's just not good. It's just not good situation. Mike McGlinchey, man, this knee, this is a bad issue. Bad issue. So this is what he says. He goes that the 49ers are optimistic about Mike McGlinchey, and they're going to evaluate him next week. He's out with knee irritation after recovering from a torn quad. This is what Kyle said. He goes, it wasn't the same exact injury, but it was still on the same leg. So he has more issues on the same knee that he had the torn quad. Again, the knee may not get healthy this year. He's going to be dealing with issues. And I know he's had the plasma-rich platelet injection, the PRP. He does that frequently. That takes about 4 weeks for it to kind of kick in. So he might miss week 1. I just don't understand that they're going to, hope that he's healthy. They should have addressed the right tackle spot. I know that they had high hopes for McGlinchey. They picked up his 5th-year option, but it's not looking too good. It's not looking very good for him. My man Nicholas says that injury lingers. McGlinchey, I don't know, man. I truly hope he can stay healthy, but it's not looking good. Exactly, Nick. 100%. That is exactly my thoughts on this situation. Is this injury will linger. It's not going to get better overnight. A torn quad is a very, very, very serious issue, especially for a lineman. Putting all that force on your knee, all those joints are going to take, a lot of strain. And I was saying that this offseason, that I said, beware with Mike McGlinchey. Please draft a right tackle. They did draft a tackle. His name is Spencer Burford, but they have to play him at guard. So they didn't really have an answer at that side because you let Laken Tomlinson go. And then, okay, Aaron Banks steps in and plays left guard, and that's fine. But if they would have kept Laken, you could have put Aaron Banks on the other side at right guard, teach him how to play the right side, and then you can slot Spencer Burford at tackle. I think that would have been better. Of course, Laken would have cost a lot of money, but I think that is the way it should have been. That's my take. And center, we just got to hope that Jake Brendel can be the guy we need. But it is an unfortunate issue, and I don't know if Mike McGlinchey is going to make it through this season. I hate to be pessimistic. I hate to be negative on it. I just don't see it. With that injury, and my knowledge on the injuries and my history with people that have had that type of injury, that's a tough injury. If he can power through this season, he's going to be gassed out. I don't know how he's going to survive this year. It's going to be a lot of strain on that knee. But I hope he's okay. I hope he can stay healthy. He's a phenomenal run blocker. And in Kyle Shanahan's system, you need a powerful run blocker. He's one of the best run blockers in the league. I know people give Mike McGlinchey a lot of crap. He's not the greatest in pass protection, but, man, this guy can block on the run. He knows the scheme very well, and he's effective in it. So we'll see what happens. Niner Empire says McGlinchey has been injured almost his whole time with this. Yeah, knee injury after knee injury. He always has a flare-up, some type of issue, hamstring, knee, tendonitis, and then he gets these PRP injections, and that takes him out for a few weeks. He's been dealing with knee issues for a long time throughout his career with the Niners, and it's frustrating. I think they should have been a little bit more proactive on selecting some tackles in this draft or in previous drafts. The guy's had a lot of issues with his knees. I know they selected Jalen Moore last year, but he has an injury too. So I think you should have spent a little bit higher draft pick on a tackle is all I'm saying. It's a pretty important position. You got to protect your quarterback. The O-line is pretty damn important. The game is won in the trenches. But, it is what it is. Let's shift over to the next guy he talked about. He did talk about Ambry Thomas. Let's listen to what he said about Ambry Thomas. Let me pull up my note on this. I took a bunch of notes on what Shanahan said. Let me pull this one out. Let's see. He did talk about, where was it? Ambry Thomas. Oh, yeah. So he didn't practice this week. He's out with an injury. His status is uncertain. He did say this about Ambry Thomas. This is very interesting. He says, I just want to see him battle to make the team. Ambry Thomas has to battle to make this roster. This guy was a 3rd-round pick last year. Game-winning touchdown against or interception against the Rams to put us in the playoffs. Kid that was on the rise. Kyle Shanahan says, I just want to see him battle to make the team. Ambry Thomas is in jeopardy to make the roster. 3rd-round pick last year. I think this is going to be a guy that gets placed on the injured reserve list because he's still not ready. He's still developing. He's got an injury right now. I think they can use that wisely. Throw him on the injured reserve list or some PUP list or whatever the case is, and you can bring him back later when he's healthy. And you can give him a chance to kind of rehab and develop on as he's injured, not on the roster. But you don't want to lose him. This is still a guy that you invested a 3rd-round pick in. Right? You put in a 3rd-round pick on Ambry Thomas. Maybe he's just not ready this year. He's got some injuries. So then you give him a little chance. You put him on the injured reserve list, and then you go from there. And you got a guy like Dante Johnson who you can cut and bring back. That's the guy And see, the Niners are smart with their roster transactions. Okay, you cut a guy like Dante Johnson, and we all laugh at this, how some of these players get cut, but then they bring them back, and then they cut them when somebody else is coming back. Like, that's what they do. It's revolving door. It's, okay, we can keep this guy on the team for a few days, for a few weeks, and we can cut him, but we know nobody's going to pick him up. We'll call him if we need it, and, somebody gets hurt, we can call him up. So that's kind of what the Niners do. They have like a revolving door of players that aren't on the roster, but they're still on the roster, if you get my drift. Because then when somebody gets hurt, they can just call one of those guys up and say, all right, you're back, you're ready, here we go, we'll put you back on the team. It's just how they roll. It's kind of weird how they do it, but that's the Niner way. They've been doing it with a lot of players. Jordan Matthews, Dante Johnson is the most prime example. They cut him, bring him back, cut him, bring him back, cut him, bring him back, cut him, bring him back. That's what they do. That's what they do. Raj Sanga, how are you doing? I'm doing good. Hope you're doing good. Corey Wiggs, what's good? I go back to not drafting Wirfs. Yeah, that was tough that they didn't draft Wirfs. Like, they had some players that they could have had on this team. Like, we can go back to many drafts. Many I don't even want to do, because I've done this game before. You go back and circle back on some drafts, and you look at the players that they could have drafted. Oh, God. I mean, Mike McGlinchey that year. That was a surprise they picked McGlinchey. The writing was on the wall when they traded Trent Brown. You knew it was end of the line, that they had a whole different plan of where to go. But I think it was McGlinchey fit their system, and that's the way they wanted to go. They passed up on a lot of talent. Last year, Aaron Banks, drafted him in the second round. There was a lot of talented players. Azeez Ojulari, right? And then you had, who's the cornerback? Blanking. Asante Samuel Jr. Like, there was some players that were available. And it's not just Wirfs. You can go back to many drafts, and sit here and play that game of, oh, we could have had him. It kind of sucks. But it is what it is. Cali Crew 22, what are your thoughts on Drake so far? Drake Jackson, man, he's a steal right now. I think someone in the draft said it. Yeah, Tehran says Drake Jackson is the steal of the draft, steal of the century. I love this guy. 61st pick in the NFL draft. That, looking back at it now, looking how he's performing, and just looking at the trajectory and what Drake Jackson can do on this defense with Chris Kasurk as his D-line coach and Nick Bosa on the other side with everybody else, Kinlaw and Armstead, like, Drake Jackson's about to wreak some havoc. He's about to wreck shop. He's already being a terrorizer. Like, look at the stats he's put up. In 2 preseason games, Drake Jackson, 24 pass rushing snaps, 4 quarterback pressures, and 2 batted passes at the line. He led the team this week. He's a rookie. He led the team. Granted, it's preseason. I get it. He led the team with 4 pressures. He led the whole defense with pressures. This guy has been phenomenal, and he's a steal. A steal at 61. It's a first-round talent. Probably a top 3 edge rusher in this draft. And we got him at 61. Let's go. Deb says Drake the Snake. Woo, I like it. Drake the fucking Snake. Look at that. That's the nickname right there. Drake the Snake. Book it. We got to use that one. We got to put it on the shirt. Drake the Snake. Because he slithers like a snake on that line. I like it. Woo. Drop a snake in the chat. Drop a snake in the chat for Drake the Steak, baby. Let's go. Love it. Let's go. Hold up. Woo! Snake, Drake the Snake. I like that. That was good. I lost my train of thought. Where were we? Let's get back to what Kyle Shanahan was saying. Yeah, we talked about Ambry Thomas. What else did we talk about? Oh, you know what? Diamador Lenore. Let's get to Diamador Lenore. I like Diamador Lenore. He's really stepped up. So we shifted from Ambry Thomas to Diamador Lenore because those were 2 guys that were drafted in the same draft, right? Last year we had Ambry and Lenore. They were both drafted. Lenore looked good early on. He looked like he was kind of coming along, and then all of a sudden he did it, and he kind of fell apart. And we were like, what's happening with Lenore? Today he opened up, and he said a lot. He said that last year he played, and then he just lost his focus because he had a lot of personal problems. It's kind of sad what he said. He says that his cousin passed away, and then his brother got paralyzed, right? It's crazy. That happened through the season. He didn't tell anybody. Imagine him internalizing all that, keeping that all in his system, in himself. And then he unfortunately had to go through the season and that's a lot to deal with as a young man or anybody really. Having your brother get paralyzed and your cousin dying in the same like year. I don't even think he was really focused on football. But the fact that he's come back this year and had a strong offseason, a very strong camp, a very strong preseason so far. Shout out to Lockdown Lenore, man. This guy's really stepped up and he's been very good this year. I'm really impressed so far, and I think that he can continue to develop. So Lenore's taken all his chances. He's so much more focused, and you could tell something was off last year because when he started, in that preseason in OTAs and rookie minicamp, remember he was making big plays, and everybody's like, "Oh, Lenore." Preseason, he was looking good, and then all of a sudden, we didn't hear from him. So it makes a little bit of sense now that there was some more to it, some personal stuff. So shout out to Lenore, man. He went through a lot, and it's good that he's rose above it. It's adversity. We all go through adversity, and it's unfortunate when you have to go through it. But he pushed through, man. He's a tough guy. It's gonna make him strong, and I'm rooting for Lenore. He looks really good, and he did say one thing. He today in his press conference, he talked about that he actually reached out to K'Wan Williams, the Shark. He reached out to former nickel cornerback this offseason, and he says he watched a lot of K'Wan to kind of get ready for this season. So he says he's really been looking at that slot corner role, and he's molded his game. He's been looking at K'Wan Williams, and he wants to kind of help do a lot of the stuff that he did, and that's what we want to hear because losing K'Wan was big, but we have guys like Lenore and Womack who have stepped up, and they can kind of put their ability out in the line. So I like what I see out of those guys, Womack and Lenore. So good to hear. Jordan Mason, man, he had a press conference today, and he says this team just fit my style, so why not? Let's go with the team. He was very positive and upbeat, and he says, he just happy for the opportunity. That's another guy we've talked about, Jordan Mason, a lot over the last couple of weeks. He's the highest graded running back via PFF during the preseason. I get it, PFF grades aren't the greatest thing in the world, but Jordan Mason, we've seen him turning heads, man, and I do not want the team to lose Jordan Mason. I hope that they don't cut this man. Again, we've talked about running back a lot, and this is a polarizing position. If they keep Trey Sermon and they cut Jordan Mason, the whole Niner fan base, the community, you guys, I already know, it's going to be a madhouse. It's going to be a madhouse out there on 49ers Twitter. Nicholas says, yeah, Lenore just looks different. You can easily see it in his game. He looks really determined. I agree, man. He just looks like a whole, like you said, different person, and I like that, man. So shout out to him to getting his mind right. And that's the thing. You never know what these players are going through mentally. You never do. Sometimes people trash them, call them a bust, call them shitty, whatever the case is. But they are human beings. They might be going through some stuff. So you gotta give them the benefit of the doubt sometimes. So, I'm gonna rock with whoever's on the squad, and it's good to see a guy like Lenore step in and really have a change this year. So, what's the process to go from roster to practice squad? Have to clear waivers? Yeah, you got to clear the waivers, and then the team has to sign you and revert you to the practice squad. And then on game days, like before game days, there's the day before, right? They have the cutoff if they so they can protect you during the week. Because during the week, if you aren't protected on the practice squad, another team could snag you, right? So what happens is sometimes if it's a priority player, they know there's an injury and they might need to call somebody up. They can prioritize a player on the practice squad, and then the Saturday before the game or the day before the game, they could call up a player. But then you have to take someone off the active roster. So you might put someone on injured reserve or whatever the case is. So in order to get to the practice squad, you do have to clear the waiver wire. So now with cuts coming up in a few weeks, if we cut a guy and we're hoping that he clears so we can place him on the practice squad, if another team snags him up and he doesn't clear waivers, man, that's our loss. So that's why you have to be very strategic. And Shanahan has to cut the right guys at the right time. He has to cut the right people. If they cut certain people, he knows they're going to get snagged up. So this week, the roster cuts were pretty simple. 3 guys that weren't going to make the roster. One of them was dealing with an injury, Sam Schluter. But these guys can be back on the practice squad eventually if they impress them enough in training camp, they'll be back. So that's the big thing about training camp. And, people say it doesn't matter. But for these guys, it does. They got to go out there and prove their ass off every day. Toran says, Jimmy G, will get released. Does Jimmy G stay on the team, says Eric O. Man, let's talk about that, because Kyle Shanahan did talk about that. He kept a poker face. He wouldn't say nothing. He goes, any situation's possible. Any situation is possible with Jimmy G. They asked him straight up. They said, is he going to get cut? You going to trade him? Is he going to be a backup quarterback and then maybe come in a few weeks? He goes, anything's possible. He didn't give any type of lip service at all. I think John Lynch said some stuff also. Let me see what John Lynch said about Jimmy Garoppolo. He did say this on KMBR. John Lynch on KMBR on Jimmy Garoppolo says, he goes, the options are open, but like always, having some sort of a deadline tends to force action on these things. If he's here, we'll forge ahead knowing we have a really good player. So it sounds like they really don't care if he's on the roster or not. You know, they might get rid of him. They might cut him. They got a week. If he's not cut by next Tuesday, his contract's guaranteed. So they're okay with keeping him, it sounds like, but they also might be okay with getting rid of him. Doesn't sound like a trade's imminent. I don't know. I still think he gets cut. We got a whole week to sit here and debate on, is Jimmy Garoppolo going to go anywhere. The Seahawk rumors are intensifying. The Seahawk rumors are kind of creeping up. And I don't know. It's kind of getting a little close to comfort. He might stay on this roster. I think he's going to get cut. But Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are kind of ho-hum, and they're like, whatever. Whatever happens, happens. Whatever happens, happens. I don't like that. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you guys think that he'll be cut? I don't think he gets traded. At this point, if he hasn't been traded yet, he's not getting traded at all. I'd be shocked. I'd be surprised. What do you guys think? Tell me what you think. Will he get cut next week? Will they keep him on the roster? What do you think? Let me know. Gammon Brown, please be 100% honest. How many interceptions will Justin Fields throw week 1? I think 2 to 3. This team looks like a very ball-hawking team. I feel this secondary is going to be very advantageous, and they're going to be one of the best defensive units in the league. One of the best secondaries, because this front line is going to get a lot of pressure. They're going to make a lot of quarterbacks throw under duress. This front seven is going to put in a lot of work, and that's going to make it easy on the cornerbacks. I'm telling you, I think that we can have a defense that has probably the most interceptions in the NFL, or top 3 at least. I think we get 2 interceptions on Justin Fields. I really do. So let's take a look at what y'all think about the Jimmy Garoppolo situation. Let's see. My man, 49er Dog says, I think he'll get cut. Alex says, Jimmy taking this year off and coming back next season as our OC. Might be my favorite option there. I haven't heard that one before. Gammon, I think that he will be traded. Niner guy for life. My man says, I say he gets cut with the final cuts. That would be a spicy day of cuts if he gets cut, huh? Rod says, JG got to get cut only to help the Trey Lance not looking over his shoulder. Yeah, we don't want any shoulder looking by Trey Lance. We want him to have a clear pathway and no drama. We don't want any drama anymore. I love Jimmy for what he's done to the team, but it's time to let Trey Lance shine. Free Trey. Debtopia says, Jimmy is a Niner in name only. He doesn't even have the playbook. He doesn't go to meetings. He's not really. Is he even a Niner? Is he even considered a Niner if he's not going to the meetings and he doesn't have a playbook? That's a good point. Diego says, will week 1 be a close game? Nah, I think the Niners should handle Chicago, honestly. With this defense, Justin Fields against this defense, I think we beat them by at least 10 points. I don't think it's going to be a close game. I think we beat them by at least 10. 10's probably being nice to them. I think we blow them out of the water. This defense is going to give Justin Fields a long, long, long day. Very long day. So, I don't know. What do you think? You think it's going to be a close game? I think the first game is going to be a blitz storm. The Niners have a good situation opening the season. Justin Fields and the Bears, and then you have Seattle with their quarterback situation. Niners should start 2-0. 49er Dog says you should go live with Bear Down soon. I will be. We're planning on doing a little live to preview Chicago. That's going to be fun. So the following week, we are going to do a live preview the Chicago game. It's going to be fun. Gammon says the Chicago doesn't have any weapons on the outside. I honestly feel bad for him. He could only make plays over the middle and have like all 3 all-pro linebackers. Yeah, the problem is Chicago, they've been rebuilding. It's been a dumpster fire team, poverty franchise, and now they got a quarterback with not a lot of help around him. So it's an unfortunate situation, and that's why I think Trey Lance is in a good position. He was the number 3 pick, and everybody's, been down on Trey this offseason, but you really got to look at the situations Trey Lance has. Look at the players he has. Brandon Ayuk, Debo, Kittle. You have a great team around him as compared to a guy like Justin Fields. So that's why I think Trey Lance is going to succeed, and he's got the talent. He wouldn't be drafted number 3 if he didn't have the talent. So I think Trey's primed to break out and be, really solid this year. So Diego says he's going to Seattle week 15. Going to be fun. Gammon, N'Keal Harry, and Dante Pettis on their wide receiver depth chart. I'm just going to leave that. Let's just leave that there. N'Keal Harry and Dante Pettis on the depth chart. Yikes. Stripes. Yikes. That's disgusting. That's balderdash. It's pretty bad. It's very bad. God. Horrible. They got Mooney, though. I like Mooney. I don't think he's like a wide receiver 1. But on the Bears roster, he's like a wide receiver 1 million. No Mac Jones talk this year. So far, we've been out of the woods. But I'm sure there'll be Mac Jones talk this year. But, man, it was a good draft year. Good draft season. We didn't hear a lot of the quarterback draft year last year. Oh, man. Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Trey Lance. That was exhausting. I mean, we had a long offseason this year, but I think people forgot just how long and exhausting last year's offseason was. The offseason is never fun. I hate it. But, yeah, that's pretty much the bulk of what happened today, the bulk of the news. Trent Williams did talk a lot, and he said, the offense is still a work in progress. He gave a lot of praise to Jason Poe. Real quick before we end, Jason Poe is a guy we've talked about a lot, and he's been riding up that ladder. And Jason Poe got a lot of praise. He says, this guy, you can tell the progress he's made in OTAs, and you could just see him get better every week. He was raving about Jason Poe, man. And Jason Poe's a guy he trained with in the offseason, and you can tell he's instilled that strength and toughness and that guidance on a guy like Jason Poe. Jason Poe, he's a small guy, but he's got the technique and the leverage down. And what Trent was saying, how he can get down low and really hold himself up. He's 6'1", and he's just dominating out there. This guy has been phenomenal on the right guard side. He's been playing guard, and he's been playing really good. I like that we have this guy. He's a gem, undrafted gem. I don't know if he makes the 53 because he is undrafted, and it's kind of tough. But I feel if you cut him, he's going to get snagged up. So I think Jason Poe will sneak onto this roster as one of the last linemen. That's a success story right there, from going undrafted to if he makes this 53-man roster. Kudos to my man Jason Poe. He has been looking fantastic out there. He looked good in training camp, and he's been looking good in the games, man. I really, really like this guy. Jason Poe is a riser, and I'm excited to see what he does on this team. So shout out to my man Jason Poe. You know who we got to talk about before we end tonight? We got to talk about Deebo Samuel. I can't believe I didn't lead off with this, but we got to talk about my man Deebo. Shout out to Deebo Samuel. He bought a house last night, I guess. It's somewhere in the Bay. Looks like Los Altos or somewhere where the video looks like. But he posted on his story, all his friends, his close friends and family posted about it. He got his first, a brand new I wouldn't say it's a house, it's a mansion. Shout out to Deebo, man. All that hard work, paid off. He has a nice, beautiful house. Shout out to Deebo, man. He got the money, he got the bag, well deserved, and he got a big old house. He got, he's living the life, man, enjoying it. Bought a big house for himself, and he's here to enjoy it. So shout out to Deebo, man. This guy, all off season was so much talk and so much craze, and people were hating on Debo, and he got his money, and now he's enjoying his life. So he got that big house. So that was nice to see. Nice to see that, and just seeing him happy because it was a tough off season for Debo. I'm sure it was. I'm sure he was stressed out. He said it in one of his press conferences a couple weeks ago. He goes, "This is probably the most stressful time of my life." So shout out to Big Debo, man. Got that house. Now let's focus on getting that ring. So let's do it, baby. Gammon says, "I just want to see Poe at running back and Trent at fullback." Come on, are you kidding? That's gonna be fun. Shanahan has something up his sleeve. He's gonna pull Trent on the line. He's gonna get a touchdown to Trent, or Jason Poe's gonna have some crazy run play. Throw him in motion. And there was a play he blocked where he came out, he ran in motion and just boom stuffed the lineman. So I think it was Jamaica Hasty could run in and get a few yards. That block was impressive, and it looked like Trent Williams coming out in motion. He ran. He's like a mini Trent Williams, a literal mini Trent Williams, man. And Trent Williams in the making. I want to see some trickeration. I want to see Trent Williams get a touchdown, and I need to see Jason Poe run the ball as well. But it's going to be an exciting season. We got 2 more days until game day, the last preseason game, and then next week roster cuts, and it's getting down to the nitty-gritty. We got to go from 80 to 53 players. We'll talk all about it every day, right? And we'll be back tomorrow with whatever news brings us. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. That's it for today. I love you. Appreciate you. Subscribe. Hit the like button. Bang, bang. And again.